This video is sponsored by Autodesk. I'm going to show you 7 different tools inside of Revit that are game changers that you probably don't know about. The first tool that I think is really going to be helpful for you is the Displace Element tool. If you've gone through any of my courses, you'd know that this is the model that we build from scratch in those courses. If you want, you can check out those courses on my website. Now, the Displace Element tool allows you to stretch apart your model and reset it and kind of tear it apart without actually tearing it apart, which is kind of helpful. If you look up to this little button here in the Modify tab, you have to have something selected for it to be able to show up. Otherwise, if you just go Modify, it's going to be blanked out. What you want to do is select an item that you want to stretch apart in your model. If you select this Displace Element tool, you'll see this little gumball control that pops up. If you select any of these little controls, let's say we use the blue to control the, I think it's the X axis, which is up and down. That might be wrong, it might be Y. But what we can do is pull this apart. This is great for creating any kind of displaced views. For example, you might want to show different levels and all of the different components of your model. I've done this recently for a shipping container that I did. I wanted to show all of the actual individual elements of that model in one 3D view, which is usually pretty difficult to do. But using the Displace Element tool, I was able to do that by just tearing it apart, and you can select anything in the model and move it away from the model. Now, what's cool about this is that what you can do is easily reset it if you need by selecting the reset button, and there we go. And I've just noticed I was completely wrong. It's the Z displacement that I was changing, the Z direction, and you can manually change them in the properties panel by just typing in whatever you need. We'll change this to 10,000 and it will bring it down 3,000 or whatever it was. Another really cool thing about this is that you can easily add in paths. So if I select that path tool, what I can do is select any corner of that roof, and it's going to create a little line that shows where that came from. Now, that's really cool for creating, these displaced looking views. And the cool thing is that it's only going to change it in this view. It's not going to be tearing it apart in any of your plans or elevations or anything. It's just view specific, and you can easily reset it by just hitting the reset button. Or if you want to add or remove anything to that displacement set, you can hit that edit button and you can add, let's say we want to add this and this wall here and maybe this ceiling. You can just add it all or remove things by using the remove button. And once you hit finish, it's going to make those changes. It's pretty cool. Now, the next tool that I wish I knew a lot earlier, which is a game changer, is the Beam Systems tool. And I've just created a video on this, creating structural framing, but really you can use the Beam Systems tool for anything, and it's got a lot of different uses. Pretty much it's like the array tool, except you're specifying a border or the extents of your array. You'll find the Beam Systems tool inside the Structure tab up the top here, and under Structure you'll see Beam System. I'm not going to go into this in depth, but you can check out the last video, which was also sponsored by Autodesk, which is the structural framing tutorial. However, what we can do is give you a little rundown of this tool. The Beam System tool is awesome if I'm ever doing a panel of timber slats or something like that. It's really good for stuff like that. The first thing you want to do is just set your work plane, and then once your work plane's set, you can set out your different rules in the properties panel. So for example, if you want, well, all I've got here are universal beams. If I wanted, say, these universal beams at 1200 centers, which just means they're 1200 millimeters apart from the center of each beam, I could change that to 1200. And with that selected, then all you'd have to do is draw in your boundary lines. And then once you've specified your boundary extents, what you can do is just choose the beam direction, which just shows which way you want the beams to go. Very simple. And then you hit that green tick. It's going to create a system of structural elements which can be changed and adapted in the future. If you set the work plane to, let's say, a roof, and you want to create a bunch of rafters, which are just the timber structure that's holding up that roof, then that structure is going to move up and down when you move the roof, which is huge because I used to model all of my structure without creating a beam system and without setting the work plane. Once I moved that roof, which things always change in the industry. You always get clients coming back to you or your bosses coming back to you and saying, I want to change this, I want to change that. So when things don't move with the things they're supposed to move with, it can get extremely frustrating, extremely messy very quick. So you want to be able to use beam systems to do any kind of arrays, slatted systems that you need. There's a lot of uses for it, and it's worth playing around with. It's quite simple once you get the hang of it. Now, the next tool I wish I knew about a lot sooner as well was the Keynotes tool. I always found Keynotes extremely daunting. Once I started learning about them, I realized that they are very simple, very easy to use. You'll find Keynotes in the Annotate tab, and all the way at the end here, you've got Keynotes. I also have a video which was in the advanced course, which is all about Keynotes, which is worth checking out if you want to learn more about these. Basically, they're used to tag different elements inside your model. What it's doing is giving it a new value, a new key value. You can then give it a note as well, a keynote. Now, the wicked thing about these, let's say you want to make an annotation and a note of, say, one of your walls, and you've got, say, a brick wall which has 110 millimeter thick bricks, and you've specified them as a red brick. If you were to go through your entire model and go to each view and write in a text note that says this is a 110 millimeter wide red brick, the issue is that when that brick changes, let's say your boss comes back to you and says, you know what, we're not going to use that red brick anymore because they had no stock. What we're going to use instead is a grey brick. Then you have to go through your entire model and change that note. This gets really messy when you are outputting drawings in the real world, because if you've specified something in your drawing, you've gone through, they all say grey brick, but then on one of your drawings it says red brick, you're going to get in trouble because the builder's going to look at the drawings and wonder what the hell's going on. That's when you can get sued and you got a couple lawsuits on your hand. You really don't want that to happen. So annotations are actually really important, and that's where Keynotes are important to use, because that eliminates any of that issue. It does that by minimizing the number of times that you need to change that note. For example, if it went from red brick to grey brick, you would go into your Keynote file and you would change it from red brick to grey brick. It will update across the entire model on every element that has been tagged with that keynote. So you're not going through the entire model and checking out all your views to change that note. You're just going to that one location where your keynote file is, and you're changing that note there, and it updates across the entire model. It really is quite sweet, and I use it all the time. If you want to check out more about tagging, I do recommend checking out my advanced course, as it's a whole thing in itself. It is a tool that you need to start using. Now, the next tool is really quite simple. It's overlooked by a lot of beginners. That tool is the thin lines tool. You may or may not have used this before. Quite simply, what it does is, if I come up the top here, this is where you'll find the thin lines tool. I believe it's also under the view tab here, under graphics, thin lines. If I select that, you're going to see it turns every line to a single 1 point line weight. Now, this makes it really good for when it comes to, say, your detailing, because if this view is at a really large scale, all of your lines, especially those thicker lines, it can be difficult to see the detail in your drawing. When I turn off this thin lines tool, you'll then see all of the lines thicken up, become their actual line weight. Now, let's say it's like at 1 to 50. All of these lines get really thick and you lose that detail. You can't actually see what you're looking at. If I were to turn on the thin lines tool, well, now I can see those individual elements and I can edit anything I need to. Except don't get into the habit of turning this on and then thinking your drawing looks all good like this. And then when you go to print, it's actually going to print with thin lines turned off. So it will print like this. You just got to keep an eye on that. So that's pretty simple. Thin lines are pretty handy. The next thing that you want to start using is view templates. Probably something you've heard about, something that you've dabbled in, but it really is something that you should start using. I like to use my view templates for any views that are typically the same. So all of my elevations will have an elevation view template set up so that I can just apply the view template. All of my elevations are going to update to look exactly the same. It's just minimizing the time that it takes to go through each of my drawings and then make those changes. If I want to, say, hide something in all of my elevations, I can just do it in the one spot rather than going through the entire model and changing it in every view. Again, I have a separate video on view templates. More than welcome to check out. I believe this here has a view template on it for external elevation. Now, this is great because if I want to, say, turn off all of the windows in every single elevation, I can just come to my view template, uncheck windows, come down and click apply, and then all of the windows on all of the elevations are going to disappear, which is super handy. except we might want them to show, so I'm just going to undo that. I typically have a view template set up for all of the floor plans, all of the elevations, all of the sections, all of my 3D views. If I want clean 3D views, if I want just my structural views, I'll have that all set up in my view templates. And the great thing is that once you set up all of your view templates, you can transfer them over to any model that you want using the transfer project standards, which is under the manage tab. Transfer project standards here, and you just click on that, find view templates, and once you click that, it'll copy it from here, and then you can copy it to whatever project you want. And even better, what it'd be worth doing is putting those view templates in your architectural template, so your model template, so that every time you start a new model, it's got all of your view templates already in it. All you have to do is just start modeling up your building, and all of your drawings are going to be looking nice and pretty, update automatically without you having to do anything. So that's where you get really good, start saving a lot of time by having all of this stuff. You just do it once, and then you transfer it all over to a project template, then it all updates it automatically, which is sweet. Now this is going to be a quick one, which you may or may not know about. If I go to the view tab, you're going to see you've got under Windows a number of helpful tools. The first one I'm going to show you is the close inactive views. So when you start piling up heaps of views and they just start getting overwhelming with how many you have, what you can do is close all your inactive views. So whatever view you have selected, it's going to close every other single view. This is a different project, so it's going to keep that one open. And this is great because as you're working, you can start to open up a lot of views. But what this does is that it slows down your modeling, because each view that you have open is going to be updated whenever you change something. If I don't have my elevations open when I'm working on my floor plan, Revit won't update those elevations until I open one of those views. Whereas if I have my elevations open when I'm working on my floor plans, then each change I make to the floor plan is going to update the elevations at the same time, and it's just going to slow down your computer. It's going to slow down your modeling. So closing active views is very handy. Another cool thing is if you're working on, say, like a 3D view and you're trying to work between this and your elevations, what you can do is drag this over to another monitor, or better yet, what you can do is actually tile your views. So what this does is just puts them side by side, whatever views you have. If you've got multiple views open, then it's going to have a hybrid of tab and tile. And then once you click tab views instead, it's going to bring them all back together. If you click tile, it's going to put them all in a tile. And the shortcuts for this is WT and TW. TW being tab views, and then WT being tile views. Now another thing is that I've found myself using 3D views a lot more recently. And the reason for that is because it's quite easy to work on your model from a 3D view, especially with this next tool. What the tool is basically temporary isolate and hide tool. You'll find it down here where the glasses are. You've got a temporary hide and isolate. I've set up shortcuts for this. Be temporary isolate is II. So I can just click on any element in my 3D view or in any view, and if I hit II, it's going to isolate that. If I want to bring it back to normal, I can work on this roof, I can do whatever I want to it, and then when I'm done with it, what I can do is hit RR, which is my reset. That's not standard. I think you'll have to go into keyboard shortcuts to change that, but it's worth doing. It just brings it all back to normal, so you don't have to go to hide in view, element, bring it back by coming down here and unhide in view. Instead, it's just very simple to, I'm gonna undo that. It's just very simple to come here and go HH, that's my temporary hide, and then RR to reset it. And then lastly, my 7th tip for you, my 7th tool is the filter tool. If I want to select all of these walls and nothing else, rather than picking through each of these walls and then trying to select them all and then accidentally missing, and what's easier is just highlighting all of those walls. I've got this set up for FF, but you can come up to filter, check none, and then just select your walls. And even better, if you've got a ton of things like this, you can just click on any of them and then press W, and it will bring you down to W. And then you can select walls, apply, and it's just going to select those walls. So the filter tool, very, very handy. I hope you found these 7 tips helpful. Big thank you to Autodesk for sponsoring this video. If you want to check out my full courses, which has 200 or more lessons, you're more than welcome to check out my courses on my website. I'll see you in the next one.